This series was gone for a couple days, but trust guys, it's back and it's here to stay until the series conclusion. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy part 5 of What If Deku Was a Spy.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
They begin learning day after day with Kamui, and so overall, Kaminari would actually begin advancing with his finesse and his quirk overall. Also would come to realize a bunch of major flaws that he would actually end up turning into strengths with the agency. Not only that, but the internship experience that they're going to be having is going to be extremely similar to that of the Endeavor internship that we were actually able to see in season 4 or 5, I believe. That said, they're able to actually go through and complete a couple of tasks following Kamui Woods with his hero work, with Deku following Kaminari around and tracing his every single move, trying to make sure that he doesn't miss even a single instant of Kaminari's, what he's doing and such. And so Deku ends up doing a great job all in all in the Kamui Woods internship, making Kamui actually point out that he moves like a pro himself. But Deku just says that he's just trying his best and he would end up toning it down a couple of notches. And during this time, Deku would have the opportunity to take off all of Kaminari's data from his phone by inserting a chip into it, which would end up transferring all of his data the second that he was given the chance. And so he's finally able to uncover that Kaminari likes his girls thick and also that he isn't the mole. He ends up finding that out pretty quick just by seeing that Kaminari seems to have a relatively normal life. His personality doesn't really indicate anything dangerous to Deku, and so Deku is honestly happy. He would continue his agency experience, overall having a good time, learning a bunch of things from the Hero Society and how to actually run a agency himself in case he ever gets the opportunity to do something like this himself. I mean, it always has been his dream, but he never has exactly been given the opportunity to dream. He's always been forced to do things for other people since he can remember. And so, like I said, he would end up establishing a good friendship with Kaminari that wouldn't really last too long, seeing as it's just a mission. However, after all this time, with the agencies over, all the students would end up returning back to class, where they're all briefed on the death of Class 1A rep, Tenya Ida. With no Deku there to save him, he dies trying to avenge his brother. And so, the class attends his funeral instead of having some race like in the original, meaning the obstacle course. After the funeral, Deku is told to report to the Hero Commission, where he is told that his recent performance, while good, isn't what he needs to do to stop being so flashy and getting attached to the mission. Deku, upon hearing this, would say that they complain an awful lot for somebody who just uses him. And so he would walk away with a chip down saying that one more person isn't the thief, and that Class 1A is almost pretty much done being looked into, that he just needs about 2 more suspects to go. As he would begin walking away, saying the mission will be done pretty soon if one of them is in Class 1A. As he would walk off, and in the doorway would stand none other than Hawks, as he would say, "You put on quite a show back there, kid." Deku would turn around and see bright red wings and the blonde hair as he would say, "Kaigo? Is that?" As Hawks interrupts him and says, "After all this time, you haven't come looking for me once, Izuku. How cold?" And Deku would have a smile on his face as he says, well, he's been a little busy, as he rubs the back of his head with a mission. And from here, Hawks would wrap his arm right around Deku as he would say, "It's been quite a while. Let's catch up, you and me." And Deku would simply nod as he would say, "You haven't changed a bit." Then Kaigo would say, "Call me Hawks," as Deku would laugh and say, "Oh, we're using our pretend names? Sure, call me Endu." As from here, they end up arriving at a bar as Deku gets in with a fake ID and they catch up with drinks, reminiscing on the old days and what's happened to Hawks after being away for so long. He would explain his situation and then ask about everything that's happened to Deku, as Deku would explain his own side of the story, with Hawks having a pretty similar reaction to what Deku did, but that he had very different training once Hawks left, saying that he's come a long way since then, with Hawks saying, "Yeah, I bet," and following that with just saying, "I'm glad." And Deku would say, "About? as Hawks would say that we were wrong about weeding out the weak and things turning out the way that they did. As Deku would say, oh yeah, I was quite shocked when I came to find out that a quirkless kid like me was able to do all the things I was able to, but things worked out in the end. And Hawks would say, yeah, I was shocked as well when I came to find out that some quirkless kid named Luna was you, after looking into the timeline and seeing that you fit the description perfectly. And that change of style definitely suits you, Izuku. As from here, Deku would laugh, saying that he got the rough end of the stick, explaining his situation to Hawks, and then Hawks would go on to ask him about, how he is doing his mission. Deku says things are going fine, and so far he found out another person wasn't the mole. And he would ask Hawks about what it's like to be a hero, and not having anybody tell him what to do. But Hawks would say, that's where you're wrong, old buddy. I definitely do have my fair share of getting yelled at by the Hero Commission, but what can you do? Our mission is for the greater good after all. Saying that being a hero, while he does like it, it's not exactly the best thing in the world, seeing as all of his actions have to be dictated by the Hero Commission. And by the way, guys, in case you guys hear my chair squeaking a little bit in the video, I do apologize for that, but I can't really help it. The chair just likes to squeak sometimes. That said, this is when he would proceed to ask Deku a question, saying that for the real reason that he wanted to talk to him and catch up, saying that he needs help for a mission, saying that if he'll help him out with his own mission, saying that all the time that he isn't in school, he could help him infiltrate the Liberation Army, asking, are you in or are you out? With Deku saying, is this even a question? I'm in. He would smile, and from here, a smile would come across the face of Hawks as he would begin to explain in detail what everything about the mission consists of and why he has to do it. From here, Deku would begin abruptly scouting the place and familiarizing himself with the Liberation Army and their ideals, how they operate, and changing his appearance anytime that he goes near the area with Hawks, who at this point is trying to involve himself with the League of Villains and has Deku involve himself personally with the Liberation Army as just some random kid who is just wanting just agrees with their ideals. And so for the next couple of weeks, Deku will be fulfilling tasks for them, trying to prove himself, as Hawks would actually get more and more intel on the League of Villains. And this is all going on while the UA finals are happening. And since the finals are unremarkable, I'm just going to breeze through them. Deku would not really study with any of his friends, seeing as during this time he would be helping Hawks out with his things. And so we're just going to be skipping straight to the day. So Deku passes the written part, obviously, and he actually ending up having to fight against Aizawa alongside Momo Yaoyorozu. And so the battle commences, with me having to be the one to make up the battle. But it's actually kind of an interesting one. Keep in mind, Aizawa is going to be having to wear some weighted stuff just to make sure that he isn't not as strong, just kind of held back. But Deku, upon hearing that Aizawa was going to be limiting himself to not his best, would say, oh, that's not necessary. You can take those restraints off. You're gonna need to take them off for me. As Aizawa would scoff and say that he just made a big choice, not to blame him for him failing. Deku would say that he's not gonna fail. With Momo at his side, he'll be just fine. Aizawa would proceed to nod as from here, the battle would begin. And Aizawa would start off by pretty much scouting the area, trying to find where Deku and Momo are located. Deku would pretty much end up telling Momo to create a bow staff for him, as she would do so, and Deku would end up grabbing it, spinning it in his hands, as he would say, do you know how to use this at all? Momo would say, no, but you could teach me. And from here, Deku would spend the next minute or so trying to teach her the basic movements of a bow staff, with Momo being utterly confused, and Deku saying that, how come she doesn't know how to use it? He saw her using it earlier on. And Momo would get red in the face as she would say, I'm sorry, I just wanted you to, spend some time with me. And Deku would just have a chuckle, just smile with a smirk, I guess you could say, as he moves the hair out of his face and says, I don't blame you, but let's get back to the mission. As Momo would just have a red, completely tomato-like face. As from here, Deku would tell Momo that she's going to be in charge of pretty much just going to the area, going to an area where she can actually catch Aizawa off guard, seeing as he could handle the whole thing by himself, but he wants to make Momo feel included, seeing as this is a chance for her to get over her underconfidence, like her self-esteem issues when it comes to her and being able to do the pro hero actions that are necessary. And so that's pretty much what ends up going down. So what happens is I see Aizawa jumping in from the top of roofs as Deku looks at Aizawa, who lands right in front of him, and Deku would smirk, with Aizawa shooting his scarf right at the hand of Deku, who then shoots him out into a wall. Seeing this, Momo would want to jump out, but Deku would look at her and give her this look of keep in the plan, like stick to the plan, you know what I mean? Momo would do so, and Deku would get up as he cracks his knuckles and his neck and then rushes in at Aizawa as he catches the scarf and drags Aizawa in, punching Aizawa square in the face as it causes Aizawa to have his vision get blurred just for a second for Deku to sweep the leg and drag Aizawa onto the ground. Aizawa then go on to put Deku in an arm lock as Deku pretty much ends up having to use his arm strength to pick Aizawa up, with Aizawa gripping onto his arm in a lock as he smashes Aizawa into a wall, and Momo then comes in with a taser gun as she shoots the back of Aizawa, who feels the damage but ends up ripping it out of himself, saying that that's not nearly enough to beat him. He would end up activating his quirk cancellation ability, and he would actually take away the entire ability from Momo to even use her quirk. Deku would toss her his staff as he would say that she's going to be needing it, and Momo will then proceed to rush in as she begins to try to fight Aizawa with Deku. And so what ends up happening after this is that both Deku and Momo actually end up doing a pretty good job, and they actually establish themselves as having some pretty solid teamwork. Deku was there to guide her actions, and with Momo kind of just being there as somebody to like just for Deku just kind of giving her own little moment. Once that's pretty much over, Deku would jump in and promptly go on to defeat Aizawa in hand-to-hand combat, with everybody being extremely shocked at this, but Deku saying that what did they expect? Aizawa's main target is fighting against quirk people who are not exactly the best when it comes to fighting hand-to-hand, because you know most people nowadays rely on quirks, but when he has to fight against somebody who doesn't have a quirk and just fights hand-to-hand, Aizawa is fighting a uphill battle, saying that Aizawa's skills are pretty much second to none other than him. And from here, he would smirk, with Aizawa thinking to himself that that kid has a ton of potential, throwing his scarf at Deku's direction and asking if he would like to learn it. But Deku would simply grab the scarf and throw it at Aizawa's direction as he grabs him by the arm and yanks him towards him, saying, "I already do." As from here, he walks away, with everybody watching him leave in such a badass fashion. And from here, what I believe would end up happening is Deku would just go on to continue trying to involve himself with the Liberation Army, with all of them being told about the training camp and having permission slips given out to each and every single one of them. Everybody would have to go home to their families, as you know, from here everybody just kind of ends up having to do their thing. And from here, Uraraka would actually suggest Deku to go out to the mall. Deku would end up asking everybody else, and it would turn into a giant group thing where all of UA pretty much ends up wanting to go to the mall, and by UA I mean class 1A. So yeah, the day would eventually arrive, and Deku would just throw on a hoodie, some jeans, and some forces. Some basic drip, but it works. And so he ends up making his way towards the mall, where Uraraka and Momo are eagerly awaiting his arrival. Once he does end up arriving there, they all end up going store to store shopping, with the girls trying on a bunch of dresses and Momo buying a bunch of things for herself, and the other girls trying to kind of show Deku, look, I have a lot of money. But eventually they all end up making their way towards the food court, going to what's a really basic food court that almost every place has, going to like a Panda Express or something like that. And they end up grubbing, and from here they all have a good time. After this, I think it's a cool thing to say that they would all definitely end up making their way towards an arcade, having a ton of fun in the process, and Deku would end up winning so many jackpots as he ends up getting a giant teddy bear. And when it comes to the teddy bear, he doesn't actually end up giving it to anybody, because he knows that if he was to give one to Momo, Uraraka gets jealous. Uraraka would get jealous if he gives it to I mean vice versa, you guys know what I mean. So he just keeps it for himself, and it's like a giant pig, basically. It's like a giant pig plushie. And so he just tosses it on his bed when he gets home and calls it a day. He passes out and tunes into another one of Zether's videos, with him watching a new segment of the video being like, Zether has memberships? what? I'm gonna join. He clicks on the button and sees a bunch of perks, which I'm not even gonna say are up on screen because I'm too lazy to edit that in there. But as I said, there are channel memberships now. And what do these memberships offer? It's pretty simple. You basically just get early access to these videos. Like, if you're watching this now, the next part of the series is already up there. And I'm pretty sure, knowing myself, the next 2 parts after this are even up there as well. Just because I've been pumping out videos like crazy, seeing as it is the summer and I have a lot of time to work with. So if you're a member or you choose to become a member, the summer is the best time because you're going to be getting early access to tons of videos before that anybody else gets to. And also you're going to be getting priority reply and comments. There's also a second stage, but I honestly forgot what perks I made. But yeah, if you have the money for it and you want to get early access to the videos, and I'd say you might as well join. I mean, you have nothing to lose other than your money. And I want that. So run me them pockets. Oh my God. I'm being serious. Like that's what I'm here for, boys. This is my job. This is my job. Nah, I'm just playing. If you don't have the funds for it, it doesn't matter. Just keep watching the videos, keep liking them, keep commenting, and that's the best way to show your support. That said, let's get back into the what if. Eventually the day would come when everybody would end up being kind of told about the what's it called? Everybody would end up being told about the forest, and everybody would hop on into the bus as the group ends up having a pretty fun time. They're all playing road trip games and they finally end up arriving to the said location, where once they get off, they see the training camp about three hours walking distance away. And they're like, why did we stop here? But Deku knows all too well. And from here, Mandalay would go on to throw the entire Class 1A off of the edge, saying, "Good luck, kids," as all of them fall and they're like, "No!" You know, they tried getting back in the bus, but what could they do at that point? Their fate was sealed. That said, though, what ends up happening following that would be, what should happen? Yeah, they pretty much end up going through the monster segment, just bulldozing through everything. And seeing as Deku doesn't have one for all, he ends up, you know, just using his weapon, Diamond, to help him out with taking up a couple of those monsters. It would take them a little bit longer, seeing as all for one definitely, one for all was definitely a huge help in that part. So I'm estimating another 10 minutes, but regardless, once they pass, they end up being treated to cooking by Mandalay, who says that they better eat and rest because this is going to be one of the last days that they finally get to eat a good meal, seeing as they're going to be cooking for themselves for the next days to come. Deku would end up going to grub, and the whole time he's eating, he would notice Todoroki staring at bullets at him. Deku would look at Todoroki and say, "Got a problem?" And Todoroki would just not say anything, saying that there was quite some disrespect that he showed him in that sports festival. He didn't take him for that kind of person. With Deku saying that you can't assume anything about anybody, saying that he pretty much sealed his fate the second that he wanted to talk to him all tough. And from here, Deku would say to not get too ahead of himself, saying that he's already winning the hearts of all the classmates, that soon enough, he'll be just a second thought. He'll be known as nothing but Endeavor's son. And Deku is like this towards Todoroki just because from the beginning Todoroki didn't like Deku, and Deku just hasn't liked Todoroki back. They kind of have this unspoken rivalry and hatred for each other. But I digress. That said, what ends up happening next is the group just rests, and for the following couple of days they would just end up having a period of time where all of them are working on their quirks for one entire day until eventually Class 1B would arrive. And seeing this perfect opportunity to actually spy on Class 1B, Deku would take this time to pretty much try to infiltrate Class 1B and make a bunch of friends with them, trying to get closer and closer to anybody who he could deem anything potentially seeming like the traitor. One thing that Deku definitely would do during this time is keep a very close eye on Invisible Girl and Aoyama, seeing as he already has heavy suspicions on the both of them. And so with this, Deku pretty much just ends up doing investigation and spy work. And if you guys haven't seen the series Spy X or the manga, I definitely recommend checking it out if you like anything related to spies. Speaking of spies, have you guys seen Spy Kids? Let me know down below in the comments. I really want to know. That was like one of my favorite movies growing up. So I just want to know if anybody else feels that way. And personally, I like Spy Kids 3, where they enter the game world and they had all these cool robot suits. As a kid, it looked so awesome, but it didn't really hold up as well once I watched it as an adult, basically. So Just let me know what you guys think. That said, using this time, he would actually end up getting a couple of suspicions on a couple of Class 1B students, but nothing as serious as the suspicions that he had for Aoyama and Invisible Girl. And so he would end up focusing his training with Aizawa, as well as the male member of the Wild Wild Pussycats, fighting him over and over and over to increase his fighting combat skills. However, Deku had to heavily hold back to make it seem as if, you know, that guy was stronger than him. Even though if Deku was to truly try, he could put him down in 10 seconds flat. Yeah, that's how broken this man Deku is. He hasn't been training all his life for no reason. Deku definitely has gotten a lot of power from that. And with that said, he would actually end up pretty much having a pretty good time with the training overall. And inevitably, the day would come when they're all playing hide and go seek in the nighttime, and Deku would just follow Koda to bring him a curry bowl, when suddenly he spots a gigantic muscular man. And this would be the villain known as Muscular, as he would say. Looks like I got lucky tonight. Like for part 6!